Hey guys, Evan here with Inside IOST. I know we did not have a regularly scheduled show for you this week. That's because Peter and I actually were back in New York City. We were following up with a development client of ours, but we're going to be having a regularly scheduled show for you on Tuesday of next week. We'll be back in studio, so we look forward to keeping you up to date on everything. For this week, I have a presentation that we did with ICAC. We talked a lot about sort of our backgrounds and what qualifies us. So it might be some new information for you guys to see what we did in a previous life. And just talked kind of about what our strategy is for maintaining Tier 1 status as we move into quarter two. So I hope you enjoy. Again, we'll be back next week with a regular show. And just as a disclaimer here, nothing is to be construed as tax, legal, accounting, finance, investment, any kind of advice. Do your own research and don't take advice from people online. I hope you guys enjoy, and we'll see you next week.
Hi, my name is Evan Schindler. Some of you might have seen me around with Pete, who's also on the line here, and our other co-founder, Josh, who's not on this call. We found a node called Liobe, although we have recently changed the name to Inside IOST because there's a bit of confusion. There's also another node called Libe, which I think in Chinese is hunting coin. We want it to be Leo, like cool coin. So that's where we came up with the name. So I can give some background about myself. I can actually go into our slides here. Let me just share this. Can everybody see this up on their screen? Good? Okay, so we are Inside IOST. This is our logo here. We were a tier 1 node for the first quarter. I know it was kind of a shorter quarter, but we're going to go through first first we're going to do some background on ourselves, who we are, why we're qualified to be in the space, and talk to more people about the space. And then we'll go over kind of why we expect to remain a tier 1 node in the second quarter. And then last, Pete's going to cover some of the topics of actually spinning up your own node, some of the technical aspects, and then we'll take questions at the end. So we are Inside IOST. This is our core team here. Josh Bryant, who's not on the call, he's the old man of the crew, as we like to call him. He really comes from a large. He's got a corporate background with experience with BNY Mellon, Highmark Health Systems. He's a Carnegie Mellon grad, information systems guy. Really well at managing technical teams, things like that. You see myself in the middle there. I have a background in payments. I actually spent a lot of time traveling through Asia and in South America with a startup based out of Pittsburgh. We were funded by MasterCard, and then after working for that company, that was kind of my first gig out of college. I went on to start my own QR payments companies, very similar to how you see Alipay or WeChat Pay, although we were on a very small scale in my hometown of Pittsburgh. I had Chinese partners there. Also, just some extra information about myself. My wife is from Zhejiang province, so, wo shuo le zhongwen Etienne. So, Pete, do you want to talk a little bit about yourself and your background?
Yeah, sure. Let me, can you guys see me?
Looks
Hello?
good.
Hi, Peter.
Hi, I've been involved in technology and programming ever since, I don't know, coming up on a 12, 13 years now. Worked in systems programming. I got interested in cryptocurrency, blockchain. I'm kind of the blockchain expert of the group. I've programmed for Ethereum and EOS smart contracts, working on some dApps right now. Waiting to build IOST dApps waiting for a few tools to come out that I would like to see, and then we'll begin working on that. I also work for Liquid Apps, which is a network of dApp service providers.
Excellent.
There we go.
Okay, so then after you got to know us, hopefully, let's dive into what made us a tier 1 contributor. Let me see if I can move this box away. Okay. So basically, for for quarter one, our main staple of what we provide for the community is really content, and there's kind of two factors to that. So Pete and I, we both work together for a company in the U.S. That's where we met each other a little over a year ago, and actually Josh worked with us too. And there was a couple guys there who started a weekly show for EOS, and it's called Everything EOS, and it really rose in popularity. And basically, what they did was they covered all the news, they did some inside research, and they kind of brought the quick and dirty facts of what's going on in the EOS ecosystem to everybody, so that basically you could watch the show, and you could keep up with the entire ecosystem. So we wanted to copy that model because we saw it work so well with Everything EOS. And then we went with the same alliteration, Everything EOS, to II inside IOST. And this is a weekly show. It comes out on YouTube. Sorry for all of our Chinese people without VPN. We think we might get it on Yoku soon enough, but we want to do some translation work before we get into that. So it takes a little bit of time. But if you have a VPN, or you're in Singapore, or you're outside of mainland China, then definitely check us out on YouTube. We're also on Apple Podcasts. Let me go to the next one. There we go. One of the other kind of staples of the content that we're trying to bring is not just, guys sitting around talking about the news, because a lot of times, if you're someone that's already interested in IOST, you're going to hear a lot of the things that you might have already known about, or you might even know more about than the people on the podcast. So we focus on doing tutorials as well. And you see on the left side, Pete's doing a tutorial for owner and active keys. This is something that maybe not a lot of people are aware of, but you can actually change your owner key to be separate from your active key with IOST, so that when all of your IOSTs staked to a node, there's a 7-day unstaking period, which I'm sure many of you know. You can actually change your owner key to be different from the active key, so that should your account be compromised, then you'll actually be able to go back in and change the key. Pete, I don't know if you want to speak more on that. I think you're muted.
Sorry about that. Yeah, it's kind of an advanced factor, but it's if your active key is stolen, let's say you're using it in an application, you're pasting it into a website, something like that. We're all kind of a little hesitant to paste our private keys anywhere. Well, this really helps because you can use your owner key to change your active key if the hacker steals the active key. And you don't save everything when you do that, but you can save the IOST that you have staked for resources and voting, which for most of us is most of our IOST. So helpful little things. We hope to come out with more information on the permission system. It's very powerful. You can do multi-signature things. You can require multiple parties to manage an account. But we're figuring that out and producing more tutorials.
Right. And tutorials, like Pete said, is going to be kind of a huge thing for us going forward. We've been, doing them throughout quarter 2, quarter 3. On the right, you see I'm doing a token pocket demo. So if anyone here in the IOST community has their own DApp or has something like that, we'd be happy to run through a demo on our show. We're not like charging money or anything like that. It's all just purely informational and for the better of the community. Kind of playing off some of those tutorials, we did do some infographics. This was really around kind of some of the information that's a little bit unclear coming out of the foundation. We wanted to make some nice graphics to make it easier for people to understand. When our name was Leobi, we had these infographics come out. The one on the left there kind of explains the reward pools and how those are distributed and divided amongst the voters and the nodes, and the survey nodes versus just the participant nodes. And then on the right, we have the update that they did to the actual survey system. This happened back in, I want to say, mid-March. There was a big change, not a big change, but just a significant enough change to the way that the council is built for survey distribution, and the way that surveys actually burnt from everyone that's earning it, all the nodes, the block producing nodes that are earning it. So we just wanted to put out explainers like that and do infographics like that. It's just really another medium and another tool at our disposal for educating the community. Pete, you want to cover this slide?
Sure. We also started to build out some resources, and we have a lot more work to do on this front. But we built a quick IOST rewards calculator early on, before it was straightforward how to plug into the API and everything. We built one that you can still use to calculate what rewards you'd expect if you vote for nodes. And we saw a lot of use from that. Thousands of people come into our website and attempting to calculate what rewards they would get. And then recently we also put up an IOST event calendar where we put events thrown by any node and in any place. So if you have any events you're aware of that you would like to expand their reach, you would like to reach out to our listenership, we'll make people aware of them. We'll put them on the calendar. We'll investigate them. We'll talk about them. Just go ahead and reach out.
Yeah, both of these can be found on our website, insideiost.com. The calculator on the right, I know right now there's a few different calculators. Libby has one. IOST ABC just came out with a great one. We're not in here trying to claim that we have like the best rewards calculator ever, but we did put ours out basically as the first one that was out there, even before Libby's. So we're trying to improve on these, and we're coming out with more tools that you should see either in the second quarter or third quarter of this year. So moving forward, just want to talk about kind of what our focus is and what our contribution is going to be to try and remain in the tier 1. We're going to continue the weekly content that's dedicated to IOST news. This comes out on YouTube. If you have access to YouTube, I advise you check it out. It's something you can listen to passively to kind of know what's all going on, what's all the latest news with IOST, their partnerships and whatnot. We're going to continue the tutorials and the explanations of the tools. A big one that we're going to come out with is one on token economics pretty soon. We spoke with another node called Metanix. Metanix is actually based in the UK right now, but he's a gentleman from Canada, and they're another excellent node for any sort of tech resources or any information that you need at all, really, in the ecosystem. And we're going to cover really what the inflation mechanism is, because there's still a lot of confusion about that, a lot of misinformation out there about whether IOST is an inflationary asset or whether it's deflationary, what forces are at play for inflation and deflation. So keep an eye out for that. And we want to continue to, again, do integrations or any dApps that are out there. If you have something cool that you want us to show off to our community, we'll be happy to do that. And then the last thing I want to talk about is the Bridging the Gap series for Eastern exposure. And we started doing this about a couple of weeks back. What we're doing is we're basically interviewing people who are big players in the IOST ecosystem, be them dApp developers, be them nodes, be them communities, people who are trying to do meetups, anything like that. And we're trying to basically bring that information in front of the Western audience, because what we've noticed, especially like Pete and I, we're involved in EOS as well. Everybody knows Bitcoin. If you're here, you should know Bitcoin by now. A lot of these protocols, there's a big difference between the projects and the initiatives that people in the East are doing, people in China, in Singapore, in Japan, in Korea, and then what people in the West are doing, people in Canada, US, UK, Europe, all that. So we wanted to, instead of having this kind of like black box where China's got all these awesome projects coming out and all these initiatives, and nobody in the West really knows kind of where to look or how to find that information. We're trying to bridge the gap for this, and we're trying to shed light on these Chinese projects. So the first one we did, I think it came out maybe a little over a week ago, was an interview I did with OnBlock. If you're familiar with OnBlock, that's the first project out of Oasis, which is Jimmy's secret weapon. They allow you to sign up using just a phone number. You don't have to worry about any of your resources being iGas or iRAM or anything like that. And then we've got some interviews lined up with a few other big projects. So if you're out there, if you're a node or you've got a dApp that you want to kind of talk about to a Western audience, we can have you on. It doesn't have to be a video interview. It can be just a phone interview that we record, and we can have someone on to be an interpreter, so you don't have to worry it's not live or anything. We're not going to make you do a live presentation like you guys make us do in front of you. No, just kidding. So it's, it can be really cool, really laid back. It doesn't have to be long. So you can find out more information about how to reach us at the end here. Pete, take it away.
Yeah, sure. So we are really interested in having more serving nodes on the network because one of the strengths of IOST is that it doesn't have a limited number of nodes like competing protocols. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what a serving node requires. If you're already running a node, then you already know this information, but maybe you're interested if you're just a partner. Most serving nodes do run on Amazon Web Services, and that's kind of the official recommendation of the IOST Foundation. But you can run your own cold metal node. You can run your own server. You can also run on other hosting options. We use DigitalOcean, but anything like that. The minimum requirements are 4 CPU cores, 8 gigs RAM, and 100 megabits per second bandwidth. But the foundation does recommend double that. We run double that. We find it's not too expensive to run double that, 8 CPU cores and 16 gigs RAM. And then while the official specs will tell you need 5 terabytes of storage, and you will soon, you don't need that right now. You can start with 1 to 2 and watch your space, and then scale up your storage as the network grows. So you can save a little bit of money on the front end. Evan, can you flip to the next slide? And all of this costs between $200 and $500 per month for us. You might be able to run it more cheaply, but that's what we found. And you need to have some tech expertise. You need to be familiar with the Linux terminal, or you need to know someone who is, and just general system administration as well. And these things are important because if your serving node stops producing blocks, maybe you missed an update or something crashed and you didn't notice and you didn't restart the server, then you're put in jail. Not you, but the serving node is temporarily put in jail, which is just it means it's penalized for not being a reliable node, and it will stop your block rewards for, I believe it's 24 hours, but penalties could be more severe if you are performing, regularly failing to perform. So you want someone reliable, you want a reliable setup, even if you run your own local server. And we actually do offer services with third-party partners. We don't maintain nodes ourselves, but we know people who do, who specialize in this. So if you're interested in launching and maintaining a serving node and you don't want to get your hands dirty, then we know who to touch with, help out. And that's what I've got for serving nodes. So I'd be happy to answer any questions about that later.
And then here's our last slide. This is just how to get in touch with us. There's my personal WeChat. You'll see me there looking very astute and thoughtful. And then we've got our Telegram link. Really, Telegram is the best way to get in touch with us because it's not just me there, but it's pretty much everyone. We even have Chris from the international channel helps. He comes in and helps talk to people there. We've got other nodes in there that answer questions, but absolutely no problem with reaching out to me on WeChat. Eventually, we probably will look into starting our own WeChat group. We're starting to get a lot more traction with people talking to me about certain stuff on WeChat. And I guess I'll stop the share because that's it. Did it work?
Yes.
Okay. Great.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Evan and Pete. Does anyone has any questions or anything Sunday want to ask Evan or Pete? Now.
Hi, Evan. I have a question.
Sure.
Sure. I saw in your slides, in your personal introduction, you have worked in South America and Asia, right? Yep.
Yes.
So for now, for SAC, for our IOST Pacific, now we are establishing the community of ICAC Latam in America Latina. So could you please share something about the blockchain development in South America? How is it in South America?
Sure. So when I was working in South America, I was actually working on like payments and banking. We weren't in the blockchain space specifically, but since I've come into blockchain, I have learned quite a little bit about the South American region and kind of if they're hot or cold to adopting a lot of these technologies. One of the things you have to realize is in South America, a lot of these are still really heavily developing countries. And so what you'll see is like with countries like Venezuela, for example, this is an excellent technology for the people to use in order to transact and use a currency that's not pegged to their national currency. It's a great place for attracting individual users. IOST Venezuela, they're also a block producer on EOS. They'd be an excellent node to get in touch with, although I think you guys might already have a relationship with them. But where you have to be careful with places like Venezuela, for example, there's so much turbulence in their political climate and with enterprise or corporate interests that you're not really going to go down there and find some sort of enterprise deal. So like with IOST, for example, they make a lot of great partnerships with, we've got the Singapore partnership. We've got the EHung partnership, which is, involved with the Chinese aviation community. You're not going to see those kind of deals so much in some of those South American countries where there's a lot of turbulence. So like Guatemala, Venezuela, Peru, these are still really developing countries where you're not so sure. But at the individual level, it's an amazing technology. It can be really helpful to these people who, they're going through hyperinflation or whatever, and their money's not worth as much as it is. There are some countries down there, though, that there might be some excellent opportunities for an enterprise partnership, or some node to kind of take over and begin developing more dApps or begin working with multiple different protocols. For example, I think Colombia is a big one. Brazil has a very sort of robust economy. I've been to Sao Paulo before. There's like every corner you turn on, there's a different bank and a new bank. So there's definitely good room for innovation. You can't kind of lump South America into one big continent. It's the same thing as if I said, hey, what's blockchain like in Asia, or like what's IOST like in Asia? It's like, well, I mean, what do you mean when you say Asia? Are you talking about India? Are you talking about China? Are you talking about Thailand? Are you talking about Korea? Because it's different in every country. So you got to be careful not to lump it all together into one big continent. But that's about all I have for South America.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Evan. But for now, I have talked with a lot of South American people because I speak Spanish. But for me, I think the most difficult is to explain. For the major party of them, they always told me they don't know IOST. IOST is not very popular in South America, so they only know EOS, they only know Become, something like that. They don't know what is IOST, and also some people only interested in the blockchain, but they don't have technology, they don't have knowledge. So what do you think is the best way to take them into the IOST ecosystem?
Yeah, I think the first barrier for any country is having things localized into their own language. Right now, there aren't any wallets for IOST or even for EOS, although I might be wrong about EOS, that are actually in Spanish. So right now, you have countries that their need for these financial products exceeds even our need in the U.S. I mean, in the U.S., I could not transact in Bitcoin for a whole year and my life wouldn't be affected by it. But in Venezuela, like I touched on earlier, there's a real need for kind of a financial asset that's detached from fiat. So the first step, I think, is localizing, putting things in their language. And since you speak Spanish, that's probably a huge help for you to kind of, you can do your own bridging the gap between both South America and Asia. And I think, this is kind of a segue to one of the questions someone else was asking, which is, what is the IOST fanhood like here in North America? And Pete was answering some questions. Pete, do you want to talk about like kind of how the adoption in North America is going for IOST?
Sure. Let me know if my video breaks up. Overall, the community for Ethereum and EOS are much bigger, and the community for Ethereum is much bigger than EOS. And that makes sense because of market cap. Right now, the top coins by market cap get the most attention. That's just how it is. So if we see a move where IOST is suddenly higher in the charts, it'll just pull a lot more attention. But that said, a lot of crypto channels and blockchain fans are starting to take notice. BitBoy is a node. You know, he was a crypto channel here. MaxDAP, Evan, you saw just published an EOS versus IOST video. And so crypto content creators are starting to notice IOST. And I think it's just a matter of time before it becomes more popular. Of course, one of the most popular applications here is Berminal, and that is a news aggregation app that you might be familiar with that presents a lot of crypto news on IOST. And it's not a DApp yet. They've got a token, but they're adding functionality, I believe, over time. But that's an exciting play too.
Yeah, and I see some people in the chat are asking about what are the popular dApps. Keep in mind, like, mainnet just launched, what was it, 2 months ago, 2.5 months ago? So we're not going to see, like, all of a sudden day one, there's this Facebook comparative or Venmo comparative based on IOST. And I think a lot of people, they grow really impatient with dApps and dApp development, but you have to consider how long does it take for even a centralized dApp, a normal software stack dApp, like even Uber. Like Uber in America, it's this amazing technology. It's this amazing product that everyone uses. It's just this service that, you know, you don't even remember living without it. But even Uber took, you know, 6 years to penetrate the market as deep as they have now. And so it's not just going to happen overnight. And right now we saw it with EOS, where in the first, 3 months, the best dApp on EOS was some sort of Dyson game or sort of gaming platform where you earn a token, a native token, and then it pays back dividends. And that's kind of where IOST is at right now. But the thing with EOS, and I know we're not here to pump EOS, but going to the hackathons, Pete and I have been at the hackathons, meeting some of the teams that are actually doing the groundwork for the dev and trying to build out some of these applications. They've now reached a point, because they've had such a head start on IOST, where people are building dApps on them that are actually useful, not just gaming, not just some sort of like quick return thing. There's like a new GitHub coming out on EOS that's completely decentralized, completely open source. There's Dmail, which is kind of like Gmail, but it's completely decentralized. These applications that actually, they take a little while to build. And I think IOST is going to reach that. It's probably, we're probably 3 months away before hearing what these projects are. And we're probably, 6 to 12 months away before we actually see anything come out of that.
I see a question in the chat asking, what does IOST need to develop in order to quickly occupy the US market and even surpass EOS and Ethereum, and I guess TRON? I mean, in my opinion, this is kind of outside, I don't know, in my opinion, the market needs to do better, because right now people don't want to leave safe, what they think are safe cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, Ethereum, EOS, the top currencies. But as we see the market recover and grow, people will start looking for smaller opportunities again. That's just my personal opinion. And that's something we can't control. We just need to keep our heads down and keep building so that we're ready for that. And we're solid ecosystem with solid projects, and we can handle the load, which we've already demonstrated we can with our transaction volume. And then we'll be ready to receive that growth.
Pete, let me ask you a question, actually. So you're a developer on EOS, you're full stack, the smart contract, C++ side of things. What would you say, if you, and maybe this will be kind of hard to answer, so sorry to put you on the spot, but what would you say is like a major tool working with EOS development that IOST is missing right now? And what's a tool that you would love to see IOST roll out in the next 6 months that would make it easier for developers on IOST?
Let's see. Well, first I'd like to see a good integrated development environment, I think. So like an idea, not a graphical interface, that's not the right term, but a good development environment for helping build contracts, test contracts, work with IOST, work with tables, things like that. That would excite me a lot. And there are a bunch of other services that need to be built out, kind of infrastructure services that help things like storage and oracles and other things like that I'm excited to see, and we're working on getting those built out here in the ecosystem. It's still going to take a little bit of time.
Oh, hi, I have one. MJJJ.
A name, MJJJ.
Yeah, JJ is a funny word in Chinese, actually.
So what do you think is the best way to promote IOST in South America? Like which method is better? For now, we only use Twitter, Medium, or some social platform. So do you have any other suggestions to promote?
So in South America, I know that they have a huge like WhatsApp contingent down there. WhatsApp is like WeChat, but in South America. So I would say, and I'm not super familiar with WhatsApp. I don't know if they community building on that. But if I was going to try and reach out and promote down there, I heard IOST Venezuela, they said it themselves, like the biggest issue is just the language barrier, because you've got people in the US or in China who are getting into crypto, and they might be multilingual. They can speak English, no problem. But in Venezuela, the people that need it, they might be 40, 50 years old, and they're willing to transact with this kind of thing, but it's the language barrier. They don't know how to use the wallet. They don't, it's already difficult enough without a language barrier. So that would be really the first step. And then I know Burmy, which is kind of like a video service thing. They're doing some sort of integration with IOST. I haven't looked too much into the details yet on that, but I know that that's a really popular thing. It has like over 1 million downloads on the Google Play Store, and they have a nice contingent in South America. So if they could integrate IOST into their platform, where people who are making the videos or watching the videos are earning IOST, I think that would give a huge boost to the South American market.
Thank you.
MJJJ has their question. They say, yes, Evan has a passion for languages, so do I.
But he actually speaks much more languages than I do, so don't be impressed by my ability.
Do you have any advice for the people who want to be an IOST node? Evan, you can chime in on this one too. I think focusing and finding something that someone isn't doing and becoming the best at that is the way to go. At least for your sphere, whether you're in Asia or in the West, focus on something that someone's not doing that you think you're good at and that you can dominate, and you'll shine. That's my simple advice. If you want more technical advice, please go ahead and ask a further question. Evan, what would you say to that?
Well, yeah, I would say I'd play off your technical answer there. If you need more technical advice, definitely reach out to us. If you want to set up a survey node, we're willing to help you with that side of things. But for actually, building tools and engaging with the community, it's a good time to be in the space right now, because a lot of people are going to sit around and complain and say, oh, we've got a low market cap and we're number 52. But guess what? That means if you build a tool on IOST, you're going to be front and center. If you're actually going to build something, you can attract a ton of people to a website or attract a bunch of volume to adapt. When we built our rewards calculator, it's a very rudimentary thing. It's not this fancy, interface. It's not even really, it's not very automated. But because it was the first one, and because we're still in a very small community, we got thousands of users coming to our site every day just to check what are my rewards going to look like with this node? What are my rewards going to look like with this node? So I would say, you know, if you have an idea, it's something you want to build out, you're more likely to reach adoption within IOST than you are to take it over to like an Ethereum and push it out on Ethereum, or you know, it's the same thing with centralized applications. If you build an application, you build the next killer app on and put it on the Apple App Store, you're not going to get any traction because, you know, 1 million people make apps every day. But with IOST, you know, you could be one of the first, and you're going to get the eyes of the whole community. So I would just say, you know, just build things out and see how it works.
Okay. Does anyone has other questions? If no, we will stop this meeting. Thank you, Evan, Peter. Thanks for your wonderful sharing. We have really learned a lot. Hope you could share more in the ICAC community in the future. And also thanks everyone for taking time in this meeting. Hope to see you soon in the next meeting. If you still have any questions or ideas about IOST or ICAC community, you could join us ICAC Telegram or WeChat group. Now we already have Dreamer, Spanish, and Japanese, and also Chinese speaking community. I have put all the information in the message box. If needed, please notice it. See you next time. Thank you, Evan, Pete.
Thank you.
Thank you, Evan. Thank you, Pete. Thanks for your sharing.
Yep.
See you
Thank you.
soon.
See ya.
And keep in touch. Thank you.